Welcome to the latest episode of Branding the Experience, where we discuss ways how we can create environments where employees actually want to come to work and customers want to keep coming back. I am Ken Bader, your host for Branding the Experience, and I have my first guest in season 9. He's been a longtime friend, first-time guest. His name is Dan Lipton, and he is the publisher of TravelHost magazine for South Bay and Long Beach, California. Not Long Beach, New York, although he is from the East Coast originally, from Long Beach, California right now. And he's also done a lot of great entrepreneurial things I could talk about it long, but he's also on the board of the Long Beach Chamber of Commerce, so he really knows retail, he knows restaurants, he knows small business, and we're going to talk about TravelHost and branding with Dan. Dan, welcome to the show, man.
Great with you.
Yeah, I think I was on your show a few years ago. You got to grill me, so turnabout is fair play, man.
Absolutely. I'm a little nervous, but I think we'll get through it.
I think you'll be just fine. Well, let's start with TravelHost, because if anything got hit other than the obvious, which is restaurants and retail through the last couple of years of COVID, TravelHost got hit hard. Because people weren't staying at hotels, and then even for a while they took everything out of there that people could touch, like magazines. Tell me a little bit about what you did and TravelHost did to survive during that time, and what you're doing now for the TravelHost brand that we're getting out of this crap.
So great question. Back in being a quarterly publication, we released a Q1 issue in 2020, and then realized, right in mid-March, really, that everything was going to shut down. And so any commitments that my clients had with me moving forward, we just stopped. And being a hospitality publication, I'm only as successful as my clients. And so we stopped doing business for about 6 months. And we were just communicating all the different updates to our clientele, our hotels, our restaurants, our retailers, our attractions, about all the ever-changing laws and rules and regulations that was happening in the state and locally, especially as it related to hospitality. Just to stay in touch with them and let them know that we were, here for them. And then as things started to ease up a little bit, we took a stab at coming back in the fall. Probably about half my clients felt comfortable doing that. And then we had that, we kind of went backwards again, shut it down through the end of the year. But then, we kind of kicked it off, and we're heading into close to a year of publications again, but with about 80% of my clients from the pre-COVID timeline. Mm-hmm. And the hotels are all participating, but they're not participating at the same level as they were before, meaning some are still hesitant to put the magazines back in the room. Mm-hmm. So we did some things differently, Ken, as most companies did, in adapting to the ever-changing landscape, where what we put in the lobbies of all the hotels, a single sheet acrylic holder, mm-hmm. with our cover in it and a QR code, so that our guests could access the magazine on their phone or iPad, and we're able to track that, and we get almost daily signups from that, which means, of course, that's working. But, there's other challenges now coming out of what, we'd like to call hopefully the post-pandemic aspect of the economy right now, as you mentioned, because of labor shortages, inflation, etc. I'm happy to elaborate on, but you know what? I feel very blessed where we are given the circumstances of the industry, but there is so much optimism out there right now. So I'm very encouraged.
Well, yeah, I do want to circle back to the whole labor shortage, customer experience, employee experience thing before I let you get back to surfing in the beach. No, that is a background, folks. He's not in Hawaii or in Malibu. Cool background. I helped you choose that. I'll take credit for that. But in the 2 years, I know that travel host for you, and maybe you could explain this a little bit to the audience, is kind of like a franchise. It's an entrepreneurial pursuit. It's not, they're not paying you a salary per se. It's kind of like a franchise where you're building this business and you're getting a percentage and so forth. When the magazine went on hiatus, that means, correct me if I'm wrong, cash flow goes on hiatus. And so, we had all these words during COVID that frankly still annoy me, pivot, reinvent, all this other crap. Maybe I'm just cynical and too many things annoy me. But, how did you pivot? What did you do, in those 6 months? Did you, sit on a street corner with a cup, or, did you have, another line of business that kind of kept things going, or you just kind of weathered the storm for a while? Tell us about that.
So just a little bit of background. I have been doing this for 9 years.
Yep.
TravelHost Incorporated is headquartered in Dallas with markets all around the country. Been in business about 60 years. So I have a licensing agreement with TravelHost for my market, which I call the beach cities. It's basically Greater Long Beach and the South Bay up to about LAX.
Mhm.
Okay. And I have the rights for Orange County, and I'm working to launch that hopefully this summer. But so yes, it is a reoccurring revenue model of advertising dollars. And so you're absolutely right. When my clients have no ability to pay, then I have no revenue coming in. I guess, I'm fortunate in that my lovely wife works in an industry which is the compliance industry, and compliance never goes
Here's to
away.
the wives. My wife works in healthcare. That never went away either. In fact, she got more busy. she had more job stability, man.
Exactly. My wife's business doubled. Uh, but so we were okay, and we weathered the storm. Just recently now, in the last month, we're starting to have live meetings. The Convention and Visitors
Mhm.
Bureau in Long Beach has held two live mixers subsequent. The Chamber of Commerce is holding live meetings again. And we're seeing that our clients, especially restaurants,
Mhm.
are filling up. I mean, there's so much pent up demand to go out that despite and travel. So despite masks that are still, on or off, what is it today kind of
Mhm.
thing. But um, gas prices are not keeping people away. If you're out on the roads, you see that. You see planes full. Uh, and so, and I know that looking at the convention center, Long Beach in particular, convention center schedule is really starting to come back. And for the subsequent next 3 years,
Mhm.
they're at a higher trajectory than they were prior to COVID. So, that's all really, really good news. And people in my industry that I'm approaching about advertising are extremely receptive right now. So I think where the restaurateurs specifically are, they've altered their hours to adjust
Mhm.
for the fact that they don't have as much help. So some of them are actually closed more limited hours than they have before to concentrate where their best people can be
Sure.
available for them. And prices, of course, are up because of inflation,
Mhm.
but that's just not keeping people away.
Yeah, I know from taking my wife out to lunch yesterday. I'm glad I quit drinking because it keeps the bill down. But anyhow, I'll just have a Diet Coke so I can have the bill how it was 3 years ago. But anyhow, the to your point on things coming back, yeah, I'm literally later this week. I'm going to Las Vegas for the fourth time in 6 months. And it's not because I'm such a Las Vegas fan or I'm a high roller because I probably lose $100 and then I don't gamble again for the rest of the trip. It's just that that's where the conferences are. People are asking, you're going to Vegas again? It's like, yeah, that's where the conferences are. That's where I'm speaking. That's where I've got to cover things, so I'm actually, which leads me to kind of a question. I'm going to Vegas for CrimeCon for Podcast Magazine to cover that event in their podcasts. One of the things we learned with Podcast Magazine in kind of a roundabout way, it originally was just going to be online so people could read it on their phones and read it on the computer and tablets and things of that nature. But we found that some people, literally wouldn't read it unless they got a paper copy. So we wound up giving them a physical copy. And of course, they've got to pay for it, but they've got that version. It seemed like TravelHost adapted in a different way. It was always a physical copy. And then, one of the strange things about the pandemic is QR codes came back like leisure suits. Nobody was using them. And now you can't go anywhere without seeing a damn QR code. So you've kind of made it where, hey, if you want a physical copy, you can have a physical copy. If you want to take a snapshot of a QR code, you can get it on your phone. You can get it on the TV screen. So that seemed to be one of the few good things that kind of came out of TravelHost is, hey, you know what? A Dan Lipton doesn't have to drop off all of these magazines. You could have it in a little acrylic or have it on the TV and people could still access the TravelHost.
Very, very good point, Ken. And I am printing about half of what I was printing before, for that very reason, but also an additional reason that I didn't mention earlier, and that is the clients that did come back after, let's say, 6 months, and obviously the size of my edition was way down. I only had half my clients and so forth. But my biggest concern was providing value because the hotels didn't have tourists in it, right? But so how could I justify any kind of ad fees? Who was going to be reading it? And so the other thing that I did was I partnered with the second largest email marketing firm in the country that owns 180 million double opt-in email addresses. And so we literally curated a list of households in the greater Long Beach area that we could send the magazine to digitally. And so now we continue that even though most of my clients and the hotels are back. So we have added to our tourism readership 100,000 locals that receive the magazine every quarter through email. And my clients, love that. And so now even some of them are seeking me out to send specific emails on their behalf only to a curated email list so that they can highly target a local population that meets the demographics of their type of business.
Yeah, smart. No, really smart. It's one of those examples that where the forced innovation through the pandemic actually worked. I didn't even know about the email portion of it. That was extremely smart. And that's definitely a value add for B2C, especially restaurants and retail and bars and so forth. But even from going back to the QR code, I know that, sometimes, when I traveled, and when we were both part of the chamber before the pandemic, I always enjoyed looking at the magazine, actually picking up something physical, whether it was here. And sometimes I was like, I never knew about this place in Southern California. It's only 3 miles away. I'm glad I picked up this magazine. I want to check it out. Or when, I'd be like in Dallas, Texas, and it's a city I'm not very familiar with. It's nice to grab a TravelHost and say, all right, well, what's nearby over here? But some people, probably even more so today than 3 years ago, but even then, you get people that are germaphobes. I don't know, I don't know where the hell this magazine's been, how long it's been here in the room, what somebody did with it. They could have killed 5 flies and then taken it into the bathroom and then left it here. I don't want to touch this thing, but, I don't mind touching my phone and doing a QR code and looking at it on my phone. So, it seems like in a number of ways, the email, the QR code, so forth, it's expanded the access of the TravelHost brand quite a bit than what it was before the pandemic. Is that a good assumption or inference, or am I just crazy, or both?
No, you're absolutely right. And there's actually an additional thing that we did as
Mhm.
well. So with the inflationary position that the country is in, one of the areas that
We're in an inflation. I hadn't
yeah,
noticed. That's
so,
why I
yeah,
stay home.
so
Events are back in full swing. I'm actually heading to my fourth conference in at least as many months so far in 2022. I'm overjoyed to be fully back in business after the pandemic, and it would be a privilege to be a part of your next event. Do you need a speaker for your next conference? Maybe a facilitator for your next strategic planning or training session? A full program with expert panelists and interactive exercises for attendees? Or maybe you need an MC for your next event. I'm here to help and have the expertise to be a part of an amazing agenda for your audience. Learn more about beta training and consulting at www.btcinc.net, or better yet, just contact me directly at kbader@btcinc.net, and let's talk about your next event, next training session, or next summit.
the industry that I'm in, which is, paper,
Mhm.
right? Your listeners may or may not know that paper mills, 40% of paper mills have closed since the pandemic. So the scarcity of resources has one slowed down the whole process because you have to get in line. Two, the prices have gone up, and you're trying not to pass those along as much as possible to the end user. So during the pandemic, we actually changed the physical format of our magazine. We used to be an 8.5 by 11,
Mhm.
and now we're 5.5 by 8.5. It's more of a digest
Yeah,
version. And before I did it, I actually checked with some of my fellow publishers who had made the move before I did, and we found that the smaller size was more likely to be taken by the guest because it fit in their person pocket.
Mm.
And so the demand for the print in all the I'm in the same number of hotels, but the number of copies that we're providing for them has increased because more people are taking the smaller size,
Yeah,
which is great for our advertisers, because we know that when people take them and there's maps inside
sure.
as well, that they're much more likely to use it. And so that was another thing that we learned during this time, that we could actually produce the magazine for less net dollars, but still reach more people.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Is there anything that you've noticed in here in April 2022 with the email, QR codes, new size of magazine, anything that's increased in terms of the ability to track? Meaning, that you can tell a client, a current client or a prospective client, yeah, we know that X number of people are picking up the magazine, Y number of people are clicking on the QR code, Z number of people are taking the thing in and asking for the 10% discount that somebody is advertising. Is the tracking gotten better?
Right. So that's always been a challenge with what we would just call regular or standard media, print, television, and radio, was how do you measure
Yeah.
the effects, right? So before we had any of these other options, all I could tell my clients was, look, we're in approximately 100 hotels. It's 14,000 guest rooms. There's 20 guests per room per month. If you do the math, that's in excess of 250,000 travelers a month who have access to our publication. Okay. And they were fine with that because they do want access to tourists who generally earn more and spend more than locals do. That's just data. But now, for instance, with the emails that go out, so we sent one out last Tuesday for the new issue that came out in April. So tomorrow or the following day, we will get a written report of how that email did.
Mhm.
So, and I will share that with our clients. So in that email, it'll tell me how many emails went out. Okay. It'll tell me how many were opened.
Mhm.
It'll tell me what the click-through rate was. It'll tell me whether they looked at it on a mobile phone or
Mhm.
a PC. It'll tell me which portal they actually accessed, whether that's important or not. But more importantly, there are click-throughs in the email that
Right.
take them to either the magazine and I have advertisers who have bought space in the email for more attention.
Mhm.
It tells me exactly how many times and where they clicked, which gives us feedback for going back to the client and saying,
Mhm.
perhaps we could tweak some things. And another thing that I'm able to do is, and some of your readers may or may not know this when they set up perhaps an email of their own, is that you can actually grade the quality of your subject matter line.
Mhm.
So if I'm sending something on behalf of one of my advertisers and I'm testing different subject lines, I can get immediate feedback as to the likelihood of that email being opened based on the wording that I'm using
Mhm.
in the email. And so it's a 100-point scale. We don't send an email out unless we get a subject matter line in the 94, 95,
Sure.
96 percentile. And so this kind of feedback now that we have that we didn't have for the first 8 years, 7 to 8 years, excuse me, that we were publishing, gives our clients more peace of mind so that they know
Mhm.
now that there's a blend between print, digital, email, social media marketing, etc.
Yeah.
So that it's a more balanced approach. And now that there's some meat on the bones as it relates to how well they're doing. Print still is tough to get those numbers allegorically.
Mhm.
There are clients who have said, well, what if I put a coupon in your magazine
Mhm.
and so forth? I discourage it because um, the 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 type of clientele who typically read our magazine in their hotel room or in the lobby of the hotels are looking for ideas, not deals. Okay, Groupon and companies like that, Amazon Local, whether they're still operating or not, those are very good discount and coupon related. But I suggest to my clients not to cannibalize their own
Hmm.
profitability by putting in a coupon. What's going to typically happen is that a guest will see an ad from a place that interests them, and then they're going to probably Yelp it to see what other people
Mhm.
think of it, and then make a reservation through Yelp to Open Table or some other
Sure.
reservation form. So at the end of the day, my advertiser may not know that the guest that came in originated from my magazine, but that steps that guest took to get there started by them seeing it inside the magazine.
Sure. Sure. No, that's interesting. Yeah, I hear you on the coupon theory or hypothesis because it's kind of a double-edged sword. As a marketer myself, even in print, I want some way to track, and a coupon is one way because you could tell, okay, I processed X number of free appetizers or X number of 5% off or what have you. That's pretty straightforward math. But you also, to your point, is you can't quantify how many people maybe were turned off by a coupon or said, yeah, no, I'm not going to go to a place that offers coupons, or I need something more than 5%. That you can't track through print. But I would assume, and this will lead me to a question, that some restaurants and retail, if they're sharp enough on understanding marketing, they could do something other than a coupon to help them understand the tracking and how well an ad in a magazine like TravelHost is doing. Maybe you click this QR code for a full menu. That's not a coupon, and they don't know if they're coming in or not, but they can tell, okay, they're interested enough in the ad that they're clicking on the menu, and can do some analytics that way. Is that something that you suggest? And that, do you try to work with the client, not just to toss an ad in, but to try to really build up? Because the more cash flow they get from TravelHost, the more ads they're going to do with you.
Sure. So basically, yes to all of your points. So people have seen that I'm utilizing the QR code on the cover of my magazine. I encourage them to do the same for one main reason. My magazine is static for 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time that the client provides me an ad, which could be up to a month before we go to print, generally up a couple of weeks, but take that, plus 90 days, that information is not going to change. But a QR code, which leads to perhaps a website, which is dynamic, could be changed as often as the client, wants to update it. So that makes that information more relevant. But I do want to go back and touch on one other reason why, couponing, so to speak, is, I don't want to say necessarily frowned upon, but I'll just say that
it could possibly not be the best tactic for a particular business.
There are a lot of people that will not take the magazine or a coupon in because it makes them feel like they're cheapening their experience.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the value of the coupon is generally not enough to sway behavior. Now that's not true in all cases around the country. I know the publisher who has the Branson, Missouri market has a whole coupon section in his magazine. It's almost like a tear out of coupons, because the local tourism marketplace in Branson encourages that. So it's not viewed upon in the same way as perhaps one of my, let's just say, premier restaurants.
Right.
They're going to attract a clientele because of the quality of the ad that they produce, okay, and the reputation that restaurant has, not $5 off by showing this. Now, we will if someone insists on putting something, I'll often say, could you mention TravelHost and receive, so that something physical doesn't have to be taken from the magazine, which one mars that issue, no big deal. But again, the traveler doesn't want to pick up something and show and say, hi, where's my discount? But if they mention TravelHost or mention a code from the ad, it's a little more subtle, and they're more likely to do that. But I don't have very many clients who demand it or who are tracking it right now.
Yeah, a lot of great points there. I'm a cheap bastard, so I don't care about bringing in a piece of paper and getting something, free or half off. But not everybody's like me. But I think, a couple of things, and then I want to circle back to the experience that you led to, is that you got to know your business, your clientele, and your market. You mentioned Orange County. I could see in an area like Anaheim, where you have families with 8.5 kids that are, trying to, find a way to make Disneyland work, where they would gravitate to a coupon section. Whereas, if somebody's, staying in Manhattan Beach, which is part of, your magazine, not so much. They're there for, they know they're going to spend a lot of money. They're there for that experience. I don't need a coupon so I could take my wife, out in her new dress for a steak dinner near the beach.
Every attraction that has been in my magazine, and attractions are a little different than restaurants. So when you have a a geographically based magazine like I do, the restaurants have to be proximate to the hotels for these ads to work, right? There's I can't even think of an aspirational restaurant necessarily where someone's going to drive an hour to go eat. Okay.
Right.
It might be out there, but it's few and far between. Where an attraction, actually, the rule of thumb, just so you know, is that for every 15 minutes that you drive to go to either an attraction or shopping or dining, you're going to spend 4 times the amount of time at the location that it
Hmm.
took to get there. Okay, so the 4 times rule. Okay, which tends to make sense if you think about it. So people that's why an ad from SeaWorld or Legoland or
Hmm.
Universal Studios, Six Flags, because it's going to take an hour, hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours to get there,
Sure.
but you're going to spend all day there. All of those advertisers, they put a coupon in their ad. Okay, that is how they typically measure success. And those are typically the type of coupons that people will take. And that's the kind of coupon that I welcome in the magazine, because those types of advertisers, frankly, add credibility to
Hmm.
my publication.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. This is a great conversation. So I know we're going to go over a half an hour, but I don't care. It's my show, and I'm getting good content from you. You mentioned the quality of the ad, and you and I have talked about this, in person, at mixers and so forth. I've even taken some of my clients that have been branding clients to task on this, where they say, well, we advertised in this magazine or that publication and we got nothing from it. And I'll usually say in a nicer way that I'll say on my show, well, that's because your ad was crap. Yeah, if I saw this, it didn't match the experience. You either had one problem or another. You either had a problem where you had a great ad and the experience really sucked and nobody ever came back. That's a whole different conversation. Or you actually do have good food and a good experience and people should want to come here, but your ad was so crappy, it didn't motivate me to even try it once. What do you do as somebody that not only is an expert through Travel Host, but you've worked at restaurants, you've worked at retail, you've had your own business. What do you do to kind of counsel these clients when you know in your head that this ad that you're putting in here is worthless and a waste of money? Do you just take the money and put the ad in and know that you're never going to get them again, or do you actually counsel them and say, maybe we could do this, maybe we could tweak that?
That's also a great question. So there's a couple different things that I'll do. I'll ask people like yourself, and actually you have volunteered your opinion, even without me
I'm
asking.
very I'm very opiniated. Yes. So,
But
if you
but
don't have to ask, I'll give it to you if I don't like it. Go ahead.
I love it and I appreciate it. So now, actually, because of that, Ken, I'll actually ask people, hey, look at my magazine and tell me which ads resonate, with you and which ones don't. Because every quarter we give our clients the opportunity to change their ads, and we encourage them to do so. And we don't charge extra to helping them make any change or to submit that change. We just want them to know that because we only publish 4 times a year, and that there is a season. And granted, our seasons, because of weather, are less
Mhm.
impactful than in other parts of the country, where weather has a huge impact on what it is that they're marketing. And in some markets, some of these places are closed because they're not, let's say, a winter type of business.
Mhm.
But for us, with 345 out of 365 sunny, we have an opportunity to promote year round. So I will say to a client, I really think that we should look into refreshing, your ad, and make it, because the ad itself is what is going to be people taste, let's say, the restaurant with their eyes,
Sure.
right? So there's something that needs to be compelling about about the ad itself. And then in the magazine, there's these little things called spotlight listings, which is
Mhm.
a written description of the business. That's where they can do their little write-up and so forth. Let's make the photo enticing with, a beer or a glass of wine
Yeah.
the ambiance or a beautiful steak or lasagna or something like that. And if they're resistant or they don't feel comfortable doing that, there are things that we can do. So I have a great team of graphic designers.
Mhm.
I'll either just put a request to my graphic designer on a particular client's ad and say, hey, would you, just on spec, would you do a
Yeah.
refresh of this client's ad for me with a couple of different versions so I can send it to them? And in 100% of the cases, they like it better than what they did in the past. There was just inertia in terms of them doing anything about it, or, they're running a business, they're not an ad agency. So they just didn't take the time, to do it.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll say, you know, I want to update my ad, but I just don't have the resources, meaning I need some high resolution food photography. And I got nothing, I got nothing right now. So I know some good photographers and we'll go
Yeah.
out and we'll shoot stuff, uh, on their behalf and then build ads on it. And yeah, there's some cost associated to it. If I know that it's going to be something in a few $100s to get done, what I'll typically do is just make the connection
Mhm.
between this photographer slash designer and the client, because almost in every case, they like the work so much that came out of it that they do future work with that person directly. And I don't
Mhm.
want to be in the middle of it.
Sure.
If I create a good new relationship for them, a new client for my photographer slash designer, that's great. And then they're happy because they're getting, now they're maybe updating their menus or whatever else that they're doing, that just because they saw something with a different set of eyes that they
Yeah.
didn't see before. So really good question. And of course, at the end of the day, that makes my magazine look better.
Right. Right. So as we kind of wrap up a little bit, and I want to talk about the experience today. And I'll probably need to have you on in one of our special episodes that I affectionately call Am I the Jagoff? About some of the experiences that I get as a customer and want to bring that. So far, this we kind of started this before pandemic season. I think we did 2 or 3 of those. I think we only did 2. I think one, the panel said that I was the jagoff, and then another in a different situation, they says, no, you're absolutely not the jagoff. It was the business's fault. But what I'm seeing so far in 2022, and it's not just in Southern California. I've traveled to Vegas, I've traveled to Georgia. Business is back, but every place that I've gone, with very few exceptions. In fact, I can only think of one exception where I actually received an exceeds expectations type of customer experience. Everything, has bordered somewhere to average to just sucked. And I mean, maybe I'm just, again, maybe I'm the jagoff and not being empathetic enough to the labor shortages and the good people that are being overworked and so forth. But to me, if I'm going to pay more, which I am now, I'm expecting at least the same damn experience, or better than what I had, 2.5 years ago. So, do I need to have more empathy? Am I just nuts and seeing crappy service where it isn't? Or are you seeing that too? And, what can we do about this experience? Because they could put, you could send emails and have the best ads in TravelHost. Somebody goes there once and has a less than meets expectation experience. They're not coming back, Dan.
Such a good point. And so, we also travel a lot, and we've had, my wife and I, and we had in particular one in the last 90 days, a stellar experience, a 10 out of 10 at a
Mm-hmm.
restaurant in Hawaii that I'm happy to talk about if you ask me. But on the other hand, I've seen restaurants use the pandemic as an excuse
Excuse.
for less than stellar service, meaning when you walk in, there's a sign there that says, please be patient with us. We're understaffed or whatever, that kind of thing. And to me, that's just their way of saying,
Yeah.
this is probably going to suck, but
Yeah.
we told you so in advance.
Yeah. Lower
And
your expectations before you even sit down. I think that's a bad way to start.
yeah, I do feel for my clients who have had a tremendous amount of turnover, who are having to pay higher wages now with, along with all the new laws and stuff, or just to keep someone that they like who is either dissatisfied, disinterested, offered more money somewhere else, and then of course that permeates through the organization, and they got to pay the cook more and everybody else, and there's your higher prices. But one of the things that I did notice, and perhaps in defense of some of my clients, is masks, which a lot of them still are wearing. It's coming off in a lot of places, but some people have opted to continue to wear them for personal reasons, and that, I totally get that, and that's how it's going to be on the airlines now, at least in the immediate future. You make the decision yourself, but there was a disassociation, Ken,
Yeah.
between the guest and the employee, because
I
I
know
don't
where
want to
you're
say they
going,
were
and I agree with it. Go ahead.
yeah, I don't want to say they were hiding behind their mask, but when you're wearing a mask for 2 years and you have literally met a bunch of people who could even be repeat customers, and they have no idea what you look like. And even though, like, we didn't have to wear masks, obviously, when we're sitting down at the table, that um, that is a detriment to performance. Okay, we're not connecting as human beings, which
Yeah.
is a huge part of great branding and customer services. I need to connect and have a feeling of empathy and warmth from people. I can just tell you, without mentioning the company's name, that one of my clients, they did a little test without their mask during a time when their people should have worn their
Mhm.
masks. And during that little test period, the tip percentage was highly increased
Yeah.
when their servers took their masks off, because that connection, I believe, that connection was, made again. And so I think it's going to improve over time, but there is way too much disappointment, especially in the dining experience,
Yeah.
for a number of reasons coming out of the pandemic.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Yeah, this is kind of a side note, but something humorous for the audience. Dan and I have known each other for, I don't know, about a decade, and I think we hit it off because we both have a strange sense of humor. Him from New York and me from Chicago, and sometimes that strange off sense of humor, you need to see a facial expression. Maybe somebody doesn't have it or see it or feel it as a knee slapper and has an obvious laugh, but may have a little bit of a smirk. Yeah, there's a different smirk. There's a smirk that says, all right, that's kind of funny, but I'm not going to laugh at it. Okay, I've engaged this person a little bit. Or a smirk like, okay, he thinks I'm an idiot, I'm not going to go down this road again and tell another joke. So yeah, I get your point that the mask I do truly agree with you that whether it's airlines, restaurants, retail, the mask is a hindrance to engagement. So maybe I'll give people just a little bit of a pass, but I do need you on one of these Am I the Jagoff episodes, given all the expertise that you have. I could talk to you for another hour. I learned stuff just in this last 45 minutes that I didn't know. Even knowing retail and branding and having talked to you for a while, so I know my audience has. Last question that I have for you for now: for those folks that are B2C, that are retail, that could really benefit from advertising in TravelHost, whether it's in your particular publication or maybe there's somewhere else in the U.S. I'm going to go on a limb and say, other people that are doing magazines on TravelHost in Georgia, New York, and Dallas, and everywhere else. If they can benefit from advertising in TravelHost, how best can they find you?
Thank you. You can drop me an email, real easy, travelhostdan@gmail.com. You can, find us on Instagram at, in Beach Cities Mag. I don't know if you want a phone number. I'll give you my phone number.
Yeah. I know that, there are people all around the world that want to call you at 3 a.m. I'm sure your wife will love that. So, but yes, you can give us whatever contact info that you would like and feel comfortable with.
My direct line is 562-480-0784. And most importantly, just to have a conversation with someone, if I can answer any questions that you might have, whether or not it leads to business, that doesn't really matter. And I'm on good terms with my main Southern California competitor. We actually play in separate sandboxes. So let's just say someone up in Beverly Hills just likes the idea. Well, I don't do business in Beverly Hills, but I know the gentleman that does. So I'm happy to make that connection and just further the conversation.
Perfect. Well, maybe we'll do the next episode with you in Beverly Hills if you know anybody over there.
I hope we do not.
Yeah, lunch is on you. All right, Dan. I really appreciate you coming on. Wealth of knowledge. If you're in B2C, if you're in retail, definitely check out TravelHost. With everybody traveling right now, I think if you do it right, you're really going to benefit from it. So thank you again, Dan, and thank you for all of you who have watched this episode of Branding the Experience. And we'll be back with you next week with another great episode.